If you put this in your pocket, you put debt in your pocket, you put a UST bill or treasury note in your pocket. I mean, that's how people have no idea what's going on. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Very excited about this morning's program. A very longtime friend, Anthony Pompliano. And I've been watching his career take off. Not bad for an Army guy. You know, Marines are a little prejudiced here. But anyway, we're going to be talking about real money, or is Bitcoin real money, and why I'm high on it. Anthony's high on it. So I'll just go let you know I'm not an FNG, an FNU guy, this whole thing. So this is how I started realizing that money was fake today. And so this here is a 1964 Kennedy $50. This was the last real silver. So this was done in 1964. 1964, I was like 18 years old or 17 years old. And I'm looking at this damn thing, and there used to be silver, but from 65 or whatever, around that time, they started doing copper. And I went, what's wrong with my money? You know, it's no longer silver, it's copper. And when I didn't know at the time, because as a kid and we didn't know anything about this stuff, what the U.S. government was doing was violating Gresham's law. And Gresham's law states when bad money enters the environment, good money goes to hiding. So this here is the last real silver, 1964. I want to thank my friends, Jim Clark from Republic Monetary Exchange here in Phoenix. I buy lots of gold and silver from him. But basically, Anthony, what I do a lot of the times is I go up there and I hold this $10 bill, and I hold this, and I say, which one do you want? And naturally, they say 50 cents, and they see $10, and they jump on it. They'll take the 10, where this is more valuable than this. But it just proves that people don't know what money is. And so that was the start. It was 1964. And ever since then, I've been studying it. Then I read this guy here, Buckminster Fuller, and this is Grunch of Giants. And Grunch of Giants, I don't recommend this book, but Fuller was a tough read. And I studied with him for 3 years. And he is the one who predicted Bitcoin. Years and years and years ago, 20-something years ago, he said there would be a new type of money coming out. But the reason Fuller was a futurist. And he saw these kids playing electronic games. And he says, that's the future of money. So here I am thinking that guy's a whack job. You know, this is 30, 20, I don't know how long ago now, but he says, money's going to be electronic. And so I'm listening to this guy Fuller, you know, I'm going, holy moly. But then because of this fake money here, the fake silver, and this, I began my study. And this here is the creature from Jekyll Island. You can see I do study, not bad for a Marine. But this is about the Federal Reserve Bank. And then here is this book here. It's about Zimbabwe. I was in Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe crashed. I was in Vietnam looking for gold. I'm always in the wrong place at the right time. But I was in Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe crashed. And that's when the war vets, the black guys, went through all the farms across Zimbabwe, and kicked the white farmers off. And I'm sitting in this truck, Anthony, with I shoot a double gun, you know, elephant gun. I got a 2-shot rifle, and these guys are carrying AK-47s. I said, I better keep my mouth shut. You know? Plus, there was about 10 of them and one of me. And they came up to this little tiny white woman. She was an Africana, and her husband. And they put the guns to their head and said, either get off this property or you're dead. And so I'm sitting there watching this stuff. I feel like a pussy because I can't shoot them with my double gun because there's too many of them. And the little woman turns to me and she says, burn this place down. So, Anthony, I was back in Vietnam. We took torches. We torched her farm. The biggest fireball came off when he hit the diesel fuel. The grass shacks went up. Their ranch house for 400 years went down. But that's what happens when money destroys nations. This is written by a friend of mine, Philip Haslam. And everybody should read this. It's a very important book. He's South African. And then this latest book just came out from my friend Jim Rickards. It's Come Money GPT. I got advanced reader copies because I know the guy. So this is not out yet, but he talks about how AI is going to bring it down. So all excited about AI and GPT and all this stuff. And Rickards saying his note to me was, Robert, something new to worry about. So again, going all the way back to Fuller here, this guy talked about how you see the future. And the job of a teacher is to prepare a student for the future. But, today all our school teachers are preparing kids for our sex changes. And so, it's not a very healthy world here. So anyway, I'm very excited because it's the whole new generation of money. Our discussion today, what is real money? What is fake money? And I'm very proud to have Anthony Pompliano on the team because I've seen you rise up from, young guy, and then you're on CNBC and all the TV shows now and all this. So you're now the authority on Bitcoin and this new money. So Anthony, my friend, welcome to the Rich Dad Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a very good series of books that you have there.
Yeah, it's, and then this book here is Prophecy, is why the biggest stock market crash is coming. I wrote this, and Rickards covers it here. So I predicted it here in 2014. He covers it here, why it's all coming down. So that's why I've been advocate, gold, silver, Bitcoin. So how did you become the authority on Bitcoin throughout the United States or the world?
I don't know if I am the authority, but when I started to learn about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I just get obsessed about an idea, and I want to learn as much as I possibly can. And the best way to do that, especially for a new technology, is to go talk to people. There's not a lot of books written. There's not as much kind of information on the internet. There's not YouTube videos. And so that's what I started to do. And so 8-9 years ago, I just began finding anyone and everyone who would come and talk to me and explain how they viewed it. And what I found over time was there was a couple of core beliefs that people had. One was that the existing money was not good. We were going to continue to have to debase the dollar, and people would lose purchasing power. It would hurt a very large portion of the kind of citizenry. The second thing was sound money principles are real and they're valuable. And so kind of being outside a legacy financial system and not having anyone control it so that they can print more of it is pretty valuable. And then the third was actually that Bitcoin was kind of a digital gold. So physical gold and silver obviously have this great kind of track record, and they have these great attributes. Bitcoin was the first attempt that worked. It wasn't the first attempt, but just the first one that worked to take those same sound money principles and put it into a digital environment. And so, I always joke that if Bitcoin wasn't around as I was kind of coming up, then maybe I would just own a bunch of gold. But Bitcoin was there and it was digital, and I started to buy Bitcoin, and so far has worked out pretty well.
Good. So our discussion today is what is real money. When people say why Bitcoin, I say it's not about Bitcoin. It's about how incompetent our leaders are. I call them the three stooges. Joe Biden, president. Powell, the secretary, was he the
chairman of
the Federal Reserve Bank, and Janet Yellen, Treasury, and she was also a Fed chairman. Those are the three stooges, and they're criminals. So I just watch them. America today is the biggest debtor nation in history. And the only way we can save the economy is by printing more money. They just keep pumping more money into the thing. And I think we're at the end of the line. We're pretty close to it, I think. And so that's why I shift. I own gold mines, silver mines. I own tons of gold, but they're still in the ground. And I own Bitcoin, but I came onto Bitcoin a little bit late because I had to test it. So I picked it up at 6,000. So I'm 10 times right now.
It's not bad.
No, it's not bad. It's not big money, but it's 60 times 60,000 is a little bit of money. But anyway, it's because our money is fake. I mean, this here is fake. And every day people get up and go to work for this crap. And then they save it. And then they say live debt free when this is debt. Do you know what I mean? If you put this in your pocket, you put debt in your pocket. You put a UST bill or a treasury note in your pocket. I mean, that's how people have no idea what's going on. So why do you like Bitcoin? That's what my first question is.
Yeah. So, look, I recently wrote this book called How to Live an Extraordinary Life, and it's got 65 letters to my children. And one of the things that in writing letters to your kids, you have to ask yourself, what matters to you in the world, right? What are the things that you really feel kind of passionate about, or things that you feel like are important? And in there's plenty of lessons about relationships and work and those things. But there's a number of letters about money, and specifically the idea of how do you continue to build wealth. And I think that Bitcoin is the idea of building wealth put someone on easy mode. And what I mean by that is, you can go to work, you can get paid, you can spend less than you make, and then you can go into the stock market and try to pick stocks. It's pretty complex. You have to constantly reevaluate your portfolio. You have to look at what companies are working, what companies aren't, keep up with all of their, earnings reports, all that. It's a lot of work to do that. And if you're not doing it full time and a professional, it can be very difficult. Instead, something like Bitcoin simply allows someone to save. They simply get paid, spend less than they make, put that economic value into Bitcoin, and it's a savings technology. And so if you continue to save in a currency that is going to appreciate over time, rather than save in dollars that depreciate, it is kind of this wealth building, on easy mode, not because it necessarily means that Bitcoin is guaranteed to work, but because it means that Bitcoin is a simple strategy that people can just replicate week after week after week. And what we found over time is that is a really valuable way for people to be able to build wealth. It's just make it dead simple for them to understand what they got to do.
Yeah, exactly what Anthony is saying here. That was this book here, Grunch. Let me give one more thought on this. I was talking to this woman, poor thing. She's got 3 kids, 2 husbands, and she's buying cars for her kids because she's a mom. She's a big-hearted mom. And I said, are you saving any money? She goes, no, I can't afford to. I said, well, that's discipline problem. So, throw your kids off the dole. But I said, why don't you just buy a Bitcoin? And she goes, why? And I said, if you can afford, like today it's about 60,000. If you can get to 1 Bitcoin or start buying Satoshis or whatever they are, you have a chance. You have a chance to pass it on to your kids. Why would why would the Bitcoin go up in value? That's the question as time went on. And that's today, right? Why would it go up?
I think the biggest reason is the same reason the stocks go up, which is stocks go up because the dollar gets devalued. Bitcoin goes up because the dollar gets devalued. And so if the politicians and the central bankers could somehow figure out a way to stop spending money, they could figure out a way to not devalue the dollar, which seems impossible, then sure, maybe these asset prices wouldn't go up. But I don't want to bet on politicians waking up and figuring out how to be, disciplined monetary capital allocators.
Yeah, well, the reason I got interested in Bitcoin was that there's only 21 million. In other words, that to me, when I looked at that plus blockchain, I said 21 million, the closer we get to 21 million, that was number 1 for me. Number 2, it's Gresham's laws, bad money enters the system, good money goes into hiding. But Bitcoin follows Metcalfe's law, the power of networks. So network marketing is a powerful force. Like McDonald's is a network of hamburger stands. Bitcoin is a network and it follows Metcalfe's law, but there's a finite number. So I was trying to explain this to her. There's only 21 million. I think we're about 19.5 million today. And demand is going up. It went right over our head. I didn't know how else to explain it to her. But I said, if you would just take 1 Bitcoin, you could pass exactly to say you could pass it on to your kids. What do you say about that?
I think there's a lot of people, that's their goal, right? I always point to other cultural kind of norms or societies. In India, as an example, people buy a bunch of gold and they pass it on generation to generation. And if you're the child who inherits gold and sells it, you're not so popular in the family. When holidays come around, you probably don't want to show up. And so I do think that, it's not just a Bitcoin thing. This is a sound money thing. And now Bitcoin is just a digital sound money. And so there's going to be families where they pass the family Bitcoin down over, year after year after year. And if you're the kid who sells the Bitcoin, you're not going to be so popular. You're not going to be, invited with a smile to, Christmas or Thanksgiving. And so hopefully that education will help people not, sell a Bitcoin.
Yeah. But you just hit it right in the head. She says, I bought Bitcoin at 1,000. And she said, when it hit like 3,000, she sold it. So she went back to the fake money. It's tragic, isn't it?
It happens.
Yeah. And we come back, as I'm honored to have Anthony Pompliano. I've watched him over the years grow up and become this mega star on TV, the authority on Bitcoin throughout the U.S. And I'll be talking more about, please, 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 know the difference between fake money and real money. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. And we'll talk about the power of a book. I read this book here. I forget the year, 84. This came out called The Grunch of Giants, Gross Universal Cash Heist. And Buckminster Fuller, and he wrote about how your wealth is stolen via your money. And I already kind of knew that because I was in Vietnam and I saw what was happening to our money. When I was in Vietnam in the 70s, it was illegal for Americans to own gold. I thought that was really strange. These guys are playing games with money. And then my poor dad, just go to school and get a job, but they don't teach you anything about money. So I got really suspicious of my government because after Vietnam, everybody was suspicious. And then this book came out and it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it's a big book. It's an interesting book, very interesting book. But it's about the Federal Reserve Bank. And it's not federal, it's not reserve, it's not a bank. It's basically like a cartel of the most powerful banking families in the world. And it's how they're ripping us off. So what that did is I became a gold bug. And I do things. This here is from my gold mine. It's the richest gold mine in America, in Utah. And that's why Anthony, being a Marine, an arrogant prick, pilot, I see these guys stacking their 10 little gold coins. I'm going, Jesus Christ, get some testicles and buy a gold mine. You know what I mean? And that's what men do. But anyway, that's my own lack of humility. But that's how much I do not trust this crap. So you have a book also. So would you mind telling us about your book? Because I like to promote that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. The book is called How to Live an Extraordinary Life. And the point of the book is I wrote 65 letters to my children that are all the life lessons that I've picked up over the years. And the idea in the book really is the best way to learn is to pass knowledge on to other people or have the knowledge passed on to you. And so in the book, I talk about everything from money, investing, relationships, work, health, happiness, and many other topics. And they're things that I look at as timeless principles. And those timeless principles, can be things that are very simple. For example, every single one of my rich friends sold at least one asset too early, right? Something went up in value. They realized that they were up. They sold it and they captured the return. At the same time, another great piece of timeless advice that I've received is to buy great assets and hold them forever. And so at any point in history, if Robert had bought gold and sold it, that was a bad decision, right? But it was the right asset. You should hold it forever. And so those two ideas seem somewhat contradictory, but that is life, right? Living an extraordinary life is all about trying to figure out how do you get up the mountain, but there's many paths up the mountain and what works for you. And so we also put in the book.
1 second. The mistake that people make, they go back to this. Like I told you about that woman with 3 or 4 kids, whatever it is. Her Bitcoin went up, so she went back. She sold and went to this. And I said, do you realize that today you'd be rich? Yes, but I needed this. It's the addiction. This is like shooting it in your veins. You know what I mean? The fentanyl of life, cash. Anyway, keep going, my friend.
Well, I think that, one of the problems is education, as you're describing. So people don't know this stuff. And so that's obviously timeless advice. But then also there's letters in there around things like luck. And so one of the lessons I've learned over time is that luck is not real. And that seems counterintuitive to people. But the way that I describe kind of this lesson is if you and I both walk across the street, we get hit by a bus and we both lose our leg. And somebody comes to visit us in the hospital and they come over to my hospital bed and they say, Anthony, what do you think? I said, man, I was really unlucky. I just happened to be walking across right there. The bus hit me. It didn't see me. I lost my leg. And then they walk over to your hospital bed and they say, Robert, you were with them. You both lost your leg. What do you think? And you would say, I am so lucky to be alive. Yeah. And so the idea of luck is all about your mental perspective. Yep. It's not a real thing in the world. And so there's a bunch of research that shows you can actually change how lucky you are by simply just starting to tell yourself, I'm a lucky person. You have this positive, kind of perspective on the world. And so there's lessons like that that I wanted my kids to learn so that they could continue to increase the probability that they're happy, they're financially secure, and they get fulfillment out of life. But the only way they learn that stuff is either do what I did, which is go through the hard, kind of lessons in life and pick them up through experience. Or hopefully one day they're going to read the book and they're going to say, you know what, my dad isn't as big of an idiot as I thought he was. And, maybe I could apply one or two of these to my life.
How old are your kids today?
My kids are young. They're both under the age of 5.
Wow. Oh, so you're preparing them.
I'm going to write as many as I can. So by the time they read these books, hopefully there are multiple books with many, many lessons in them.
Okay. So let's get back to the saying, what is real money? The reason I like Bitcoin, and correct me if I'm inaccurate because you know more about it than I do, there's 21 million of them. There's blockchain technology means the whole world is watching it. The problem with the fake money, this stuff here, is these guys are watching it. And, every time this book is I think it's this book, but it's a great book. It says the name of the game is bailout. So what they do is they destroy the economy, but they bail out the rich. The bankers make billions and all this stuff, but mom and pop loses money. And then this here is the book that's still to come out is Money GPT by Jim Rickards. We're in the middle of a crash right now. And what he's talking about, what AI is going to do with GPT is accelerate the crash. And then you're going to find out one day the doors are closed. So what I did, because I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, I've taken out chunks of cash, and I have several houses, and I'm storing cash there, not because I like cash, but when the whole thing shuts down, I want to be able to go and buy things. Like Buffett sold Apple, and he's now in cash. And this is all financial IQ. You're positioning as money versus that poor woman who sold her Bitcoin and went to this, and now she's broke again. Anyway, so that's why I like Bitcoin. It says only 21 million. The world, it's a blockchain technology. There's none of the Three Stooges watching it. And it's a Metcalfe's law. It's a network, and it's number one. It's, who's the guy? Is Larry Lepard. He says, who's number 2? Nobody knows. Bitcoin's number 1. So that's why I'm not selling Bitcoin, but I don't make any money from it anyway. But those are my reasons. Anything else you can add to that?
I think that Bitcoin is this really interesting piece of technology that it embodies everything that makes America great, right? And what I mean by that is if you take the U.S. Constitution, you were to codify it into a piece of technology, it would be Bitcoin. It protects your purchasing power. It gives you private property rights. It protects your free speech, your ability to transact financially. The setup and the structure of Bitcoin, just as there are 3 branches of the U.S. government with checks and balances, the Bitcoin system has 3 branches, which are the node operators, the software developers, and the miners. And there's checks and balances, so no one group can make unilateral change. If you go and you look at the ideas of capitalism and democracy, they're codified in the Bitcoin network. And then we have exported those American ideals to anyone in the world with an internet connection. And so when I see that, I look at the United States and I say, this country is the single greatest economic experiment that's ever been created. There's no system that's better. Maybe one day somebody smarter than all of us will come up with a better one. But until then, we are simply going to sit here with this one. And if Bitcoin can mirror that in a piece of technology, it's likely to get a lot more valuable over time. And so far, that's what's happened for the last 15 years.
Correct. And I'll plug another book of mine. It says, Who Stole My Pension? Just FYI on history. My generation, the boomer generation, is the first generation that doesn't have what's called defined benefit pension plan. We're the first guys with a 401k and IRA. And when the market crashes, as it is right now, according to Rickards and a whole bunch of people, my generation, boomers, are SOL, they're finished. And that's going to cause massive, possibly depression. But that's why I hate to say this, but I'm in position for it. Just like Buffett is going to a cash position right now. So when I'm doing my best here to talk what is financial IQ, is what can you do? How do you maneuver in this time? Because too many people got used to the idea of tell me what to do. So they can't think for themselves.
What's so fascinating to me is if you go back and let's say that I talked to my grandparents, my great grandparents, and asked them for financial advice, they would tell me the following: spend less than you make, save your money, buy a piece of real estate, and simply wait.
And live debt free.
And live debt free, right? And so that saving of money was possible in the earlier part of the 1900s. But now if you go and you do that, you will get destroyed. And so once we went off that gold standard, it completely changed what is going to happen to money. And so people also need to be very careful about where do they get their advice from. If you go talk to somebody who that worked for them to build wealth, just because it worked, 50, 70, 80, 90 years ago doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work now. And I think that being able to evaluate where are we, what is the technology, what are they doing to the dollar, those things are possible because people have access to the internet, they have access to information. And if they can position themselves correctly for this kind of tailwind, then they're likely to end up being in a much better position than they start out in.
Yeah, I think we're at the end of the American empire, I'm afraid. Because the dollar, we got the BRICS nations and all those people coming up who want to take us down. And we're in serious trouble. Last final question on this. With you on CNBC, what are those? Because those guys are generally stock guys, and you're the new guy on the block coming in with Bitcoin. What kind of questions are they asking you on these investment shows?
It used to be not a lot of questions. It used to just be a lot of, you're dumb. This isn't going to work. I can't believe you keep coming on here and talking about this because obviously you're going to be wrong. Now the tune has changed on many of the shows and many of the networks. I will give credit to almost all of the hosts. They're very open-minded once they start to see something working. They start to say to themselves, why I thought it was going to go down. It didn't go down. Why is it recovering? Why are so many people interested in it? And so now what I think people are trying to figure out is, where does it fit into the legacy system? This is no longer just Bitcoin, right? There's Bitcoin ETFs. There's options on those Bitcoin ETFs. Obviously, BlackRock and many other large financial institutions are participating. They seem to be convinced of Bitcoin's value. And so they're having to, as host, figure out, how does this thing called Bitcoin that was outside of the financial system that is now coming into the financial system, where does it fit? What does it seat at the table? And to me, that's a good sign. That means that adoption is occurring.
So when Wall Street got behind Bitcoin, everybody had to change their tune, ETFs and BlackRock and those guys. So my final question to you is this. Let's say somebody is sitting here watching this podcast and they still have the old mentality of go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, buy a house, pay off your debt, and invest in the stock market. Bitcoin is not part of that mindset. How does a person, what would you recommend? What would you say to them is going to happen if they don't change or at least get a little bit educated? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I tend to be a believer that things in motion stay in motion. And so if you are currently saving in cash and you're watching your dollars be devalued and you stay in cash, you're probably going to continue to see them be devalued. If you can wrap your head around getting out of cash and getting into investable assets, then you're probably going to do much better because those things are doing well now.
Anthony, but what is this thing called I just buy whole Bitcoin because I have enough money. But what is a Satoshi?
A Satoshi is just a smaller unit of the same currency. And so the same way that you could buy, or you could hold 5 pennies, but if you get to 100, you have $1. Same thing here, right? There's 100 million Satoshis that equal one Bitcoin. And so you think of it very similar in kind of structure.
100 million Satoshis equals one Bitcoin?
Correct.
So can I go to Coinbase, wherever you go to, and I can buy one Satoshi?
You probably not one, because that's less than 1 penny. But you could definitely buy, you could buy 5 cents worth of Bitcoin is the way to think about it, right? So you could buy very, very small amounts. You don't need to be wealthy in order to start to accumulate Bitcoin.
And what's happening to Bitcoin throughout the world? Is it a global currency or a U.S. thing only?
It's estimated that there's hundreds of millions of people globally. What's interesting about Bitcoin is that in a developed nation like the United States, there's a lot of people who say, why do I need this? The dollar seems pretty good. But in many developing nations where their currency is failing, you mentioned Zimbabwe earlier, it's very obvious why they need a currency that cannot be devalued by their government. And so in a lot of these developing nations, it's more obvious to people than maybe it is here in the United States.
So final word is this: how do you convince somebody who's still running the old dialogue through their head, go to school, get save money, all that stuff? You've gone through your trials and tribulations talking to people, haven't you, on national television and all that? So you got any tips on how a person can talk to their idiot brother-in-law about getting out, cashing in some of his savings or whatever he's doing?
What I usually tell people is, if you are 100%, not 99, but 100% certain that the dollar is going to be okay, that your current portfolio is going to be the perfect portfolio moving forward, you should not do anything different. Stay where you are. But if there is 1% chance that maybe this Bitcoin thing could work, then you probably should own more than 0%. And so I went around the country talking about get off zero. If you go from 0% of my portfolios in Bitcoin to 0.5%, doesn't seem like a lot, but given Bitcoin's performance over the last 15 years, that 0.5% would have grown into a lot of money. And so being able to have some exposure. Now, why do I say, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, these small numbers? Because what happens is when people allocate money to an asset, they start to pay attention. And so even if you own only 1% of your portfolios in Bitcoin, you say, hey, what's going on with Bitcoin today? And you start to learn, you start to become familiar with it. And then over time, you see how it works and you've become educated. And usually that is how people change their mind.
So let's say somebody has nothing. They know they're listening for the first time. How do they go and purchase that first Bitcoin or Satoshi?
There's a number of different ways they can do it. If you're in the United States, there's regulated exchanges like Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, etc. If you want to just do it in your brokerage account, although you're not buying Bitcoin specifically, you're buying an ETF, you can go and you can buy the ETFs. They have exposure to Bitcoin. So there's a bunch of different things that people can do, but those are probably the two most popular.
Do you recommend buying ETFs?
I think every person is different, right? If you go and you talk to the hardcore Bitcoin community, they would say, listen, you should buy Bitcoin and you should take self-custody of it. It's a fairly technical process. And the truth is there's a lot of people who have a stock brokerage account. They're not going to go do that, but they would like exposure to Bitcoin. And so for those people who are not going to take self-custody, buying the ETFs is a great way to get exposure to Bitcoin. Just know that there's a difference between, owning physical gold in like the vault in your house versus owning a gold ETF. Same thing here is you can own the actual Bitcoin and take custody of it, or you can buy an ETF and get, some of the benefits in terms of the price exposure.
Well, the reason I don't trust gold ETFs is because they don't have any gold. You know that they sell you gold, but there's no gold in the vault. And that's why I don't trust Wall Street at all. That's my stuff, So is there a book on Bitcoin? I saw one. There's a book, Bitcoin Solution or something that people were reading.
There's a lot of books, and frankly, I will not be able to rattle them all off. But maybe the 2 or 3 books that I think of quite often. There's a book called The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, which is very good. My buddy Jason Williams wrote a book, Hard Money You Can't F With, which is pretty good. And then there's Lynn Alden wrote a book called Broken Money, which also is quite good as well. And so those 3 books.
That's a big book. That is a big, big book.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's a ton of these books that are out there about Bitcoin. Everyone's got kind of their different angle on it, and so those are three of my favorites. But there's many others that I've read over the years, and I tend to think, go on Amazon if people got reviews and stuff. That there's probably pretty high quality.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you very much. Congratulations on all your success. You're the authority in the world today, and I'm proud of you. All these years I've known you. Not bad for an Army guy.
Thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll be right back. Welcome back. And I want to thank Anthony Pompliano. I've known him for years and watched him come up to be a mega star and authority. Once again, Rich Dad Radio is only educational, informational. We don't make any recommendations. But I would trust that you increase your education. Look, you can see is that my world started to change when I started finding out about how the world was really run. And it's run by the mega banks of the world, the richest people in the world. And we're coming up to a big election right now. And Trump is fighting against those guys. That's why he's had 2 assassination attempts against him. But he's actually taking on these guys here and grunge. So we're an educational channel. May you study, may you read. But always remember this, if you don't read, you're not any brighter than somebody who's illiterate. So thank you for watching the Rich Dad Radio Show, and go out and make it a better world.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.